The Pacific, 1943. Dense jungle on a Japanese-occupied island. An American Marine pushes through thick vegetation, clearing paths for the landing force behind him. Suddenly, a Japanese soldier emerges from the undergrowth, 3 feet away, too close for rifles. No time to draw a sidearm. The Marine reacts on instinct. He punches. A gunshot. The Japanese soldier falls. The Marine looks at his hand, at the leather glove he's wearing. Smoke rises from a small barrel mounted on the back. He just killed a man with his fist. This wasn't fiction. This was the Sedgley OSS 38, one of the most bizarre weapons of World War II. A single-shot pistol mounted on a leather glove that fired when you punched your target. Tonight, we're examining the weapon that turned a handshake into an execution, the glove gun. To understand why someone thought mounting a gun on a glove was a good idea, you need to understand the Pacific theater of World War II. This wasn't warfare like Europe. No open fields, no tank battles across countryside. The Pacific was jungle. Thick, suffocating vegetation where visibility was measured in feet, not yards. American forces island hopping across the Pacific faced a terrifying reality: combat at arm's length. Japanese soldiers would hide in the dense foliage, in caves, in bunkers concealed by jungle growth. American Marines clearing these areas would suddenly find themselves face to face with the enemy, sometimes literally within punching distance. In these situations, traditional weapons failed. A rifle, too long, too cumbersome in tight spaces. By the time you brought it to bear, your enemy was on you. A pistol? Better, but you still had to draw it from a holster. That took time, maybe 2 seconds. In close combat, 2 seconds is eternity. A knife? Required grappling, strength, specific technique, and made noise. Screaming, struggle, sounds that would alert other enemy soldiers nearby. What American forces needed was something that could kill instantly, silently, at the exact moment of contact. No draw time, no aiming, just pure reaction. In 1942, a man named Stanley M. Haight had an idea. Haight worked with the Office of Naval Intelligence, one of America's intelligence agencies that would later merge operations with the newly formed Office of Strategic Services, the OSS. His solution was elegantly simple in concept, wildly dangerous in execution. What if the weapon wasn't something you carried, but something you wore? What if your hand itself became the weapon? Haight proposed a glove with a gun built into it. Not a gun you held in a gloved hand, but a gun that was part of the glove. When you made a fist and struck someone, the weapon would fire. It sounds absurd. It sounds like something from a pulp fiction novel or a cartoon. But the Office of Naval Intelligence approved it. The project was classified. Design work began immediately, and manufacturing was assigned to the Sedgley Company of Philadelphia, a firm that specialized in firearms and military contracts. The weapon was officially designated Hand-Firing Mechanism Mark II by the U.S. Navy, but everyone who saw it called it what it obviously was: the glove gun. The target users were specific: Marine reconnaissance teams, Navy personnel conducting beach surveys before amphibious landings, and OSS operatives working behind Japanese lines. These were men who operated alone or in small groups, deep in enemy territory, where being discovered meant certain death. For them, a weapon that required no draw time, that couldn't be dropped or taken away, that was literally attached to your body. That had value. Production began in 1943. The numbers remain unclear. Estimates range from as few as 52 to perhaps 200 units total. What is certain is that these were never mass-produced. This was a specialized weapon for specialized situations. And the question everyone asks, did anyone actually use it in combat? The answer is maddeningly unclear. No confirmed combat reports exist. But the absence of documentation doesn't mean it never happened. Marines conducting reconnaissance in the Pacific weren't filing detailed after-action reports about every enemy encounter. They were surviving. What we do know is that the glove gun was issued. It made it to the Pacific. Marines and sailors carried it, and if it was never used, Why would they keep carrying it? Let me show you exactly how this weapon worked, because the engineering is both brilliant and terrifying. The glove itself was heavy cowhide leather, thick, durable, the kind used for work gloves. This wasn't dress leather. It had to withstand the recoil of a .38 caliber round being fired inches from your hand. The pistol mechanism was mounted on the back of the glove, positioned so the barrel pointed forward along the line of your index and middle fingers. Think about that positioning. When you make a fist and punch someone, your knuckles lead. But right behind those knuckles, angled slightly forward, was the barrel of a gun. The weapon itself was a simple break-action design, similar to a Derringer. Single shot, smooth-bore barrel, no rifling. This wasn't a precision weapon. It was chambered for .38 Special, a standard American pistol round. Powerful enough to be lethal at point-blank range, common enough that ammunition was readily available. Here's how you loaded it. First, you'd break open the action. The barrel hinged downward, exposing the chamber. You'd insert a single .38 round. Close the action. It was now loaded and ready. There was no safety. None. The weapon was always hot when loaded. This was, even by 1940s standards, incredibly dangerous. The trigger mechanism was ingenious and terrifying in equal measure. Instead of a traditional trigger, the glove gun used a plunger system. A metal rod ran parallel to the barrel and extended about half an inch past the muzzle. When you made a fist and punched something, anything, that plunger would depress. The depression drove a firing pin into the primer of the .38 cartridge. The gun fired. This means the weapon would fire if you punched a person, a tree, a wall, your own leg if you weren't careful. The trigger had no discrimination. It responded purely to pressure. Contemporary accounts describe it as having a trigger pressure of approximately 8 to 12 pounds, meaning you had to punch with enough force to depress the plunger that far. A casual tap wouldn't fire it, but a proper punch would. The recoil was, by all accounts, substantial. You're firing a .38 Special round with the barrel positioned on the back of your hand. The recoil goes directly into your hand and wrist. There's no grip to absorb it, no frame to distribute the force, just leather and your bones. Training manuals emphasize the importance of keeping your wrist straight and locked when firing. If your wrist was bent or loose, the recoil could cause serious injury. Sprained wrist, broken bones, or the barrel could snap upward and hit your own face. So not only were you punching someone at point-blank range, you were also managing the recoil of a handgun going off inches from your knuckles. The user was instructed to wear a long-sleeved coat or jacket to conceal the weapon. In the tropical Pacific, this was impractical, but that was the official guidance. The glove had a lanyard attachment point. Some sources indicate it could be worn with a cord running up the sleeve and secured above the elbow, allowing the user to deploy it quickly by straightening their arm, letting the glove slide down into place on their hand. This suggests some operatives wore it up their sleeve rather than on their hand continuously, which makes more sense from a practical standpoint. Wearing a weapon permanently attached to your hand would be incredibly inconvenient for, everything else you need hands for. After firing, the glove gun was useless until reloaded. Single shot, no second chance. If you missed, or if one shot didn't stop your target, you were now in hand-to-hand combat with an empty gun strapped to your fist. Not ideal. The empty cartridge had to be manually extracted after firing, another time-consuming process in the middle of combat. All of this raises the obvious question: was this actually practical? From an engineering standpoint, it worked. The weapon functioned as designed. It fired reliably, according to test records. It didn't blow up your hand, usually. From a practical standpoint, it's complicated. The glove gun solved one specific problem: zero draw time in extreme close quarters. If a Japanese soldier was literally on top of you, grabbing you, wrestling you, the glove gun could be a last resort weapon. But it created other problems. Single shot, dangerous to the user, required specific technique, limited situational usefulness. This is why production remained so limited. The glove gun wasn't a general issue weapon. It was a specialized tool for very specific situations. And those situations, unfortunately for the Marines who might have carried it, did exist in the Pacific theater. Japanese troops were known for close-quarters ambushes, banzai charges, infiltration tactics where soldiers would sneak into American positions at night. In those scenarios, a weapon that fired the moment you physically contacted the enemy had value, but will likely never know exactly how often it was used. Records are scarce. Survivors didn't always talk about every weapon they carried, and the glove gun was classified for years after the war. The glove gun's story doesn't end with World War II. The weapon attracted attention from an unexpected source, the Soviet Union. After the war, as the Iron Curtain descended and the Cold War began, Soviet intelligence obtained information about American OSS weapons. The glove gun was among them. The KGB, always interested in innovative assassination tools, developed their own version. Soviet glove guns from the Cold War era have been documented, though like most KGB weapons, details remain classified. What we know is that they copied the basic concept, a concealed pistol that fired from contact pressure. This makes sense from the KGB's perspective. They'd already developed weapons like the lipstick pistol we covered in an earlier video. A glove gun fit perfectly into their arsenal of disguised weapons. For the Americans, the glove gun quietly disappeared from official arsenals after World War II. The OSS was dissolved in 1945, replaced eventually by the CIA. New weapons, new technologies emerged, but the glove gun left its mark on popular culture. In 2009, Quentin Tarantino's film *Inglourious Basterds* featured a glove gun in one scene. An OSS officer demonstrates the weapon to resistance fighters. The scene is brief but memorable, a moment of, wait, that was a real thing? For audiences. And yes, it was a real thing. Today, original Sedgley OSS 38 glove guns are among the most rare and sought-after WS collectibles. Remember, only 52 to 200 were ever made. Many were lost in the Pacific, destroyed in combat, left behind during retreats, or simply abandoned as unnecessary after the war. Surviving examples are extremely scarce. When one comes up for auction, it typically sells for tens of thousands of dollars. In 2013, an example sold at auction for over $26,000. Prices have only increased since then. Museums rarely have them on display. They're just too rare. The National Wabidut Museum in New Orleans has one. The CIA Museum, which is not open to the public, reportedly has one. A few examples exist in private collections. Part of what makes them so valuable is the sheer absurdity. This is a weapon that looks like it shouldn't exist. It looks like a prop from a spy movie made before spy movies even existed, but it was real. It was manufactured, it was issued, and somewhere in the jungles of the Pacific, it was probably used. The glove gun represents a fascinating moment in weapons development, a time when designers were willing to try anything, no matter how unconventional, to gain an edge in combat. It also represents the desperate creativity of warfare. When traditional weapons don't work, you invent new ones. When close combat is unavoidable, you create weapons that function at arm's length. The glove gun wasn't elegant, it wasn't sophisticated. It was dangerous to the user and limited in application, but it solved a problem, and in war, that's what matters. The Sedgley OSS 38 glove gun stands as one of World War II's most unusual weapons, a solution to close-quarters combat that was as innovative as it was dangerous. It represents American ingenuity at its most practical and most absurd. The question wasn't, should we mount a gun on a glove? It was, how do we make this work? For the Marines and OSS operatives who carried it, the glove gun was a last resort, a weapon for when everything else failed, for when the enemy was so close that drawing a pistol was impossible. Did it work? The engineering says yes. The lack of combat reports says maybe. Or maybe it worked so well that nobody wanted to talk about the fact that they'd punched someone to death. What we know for certain is that the weapon existed. It was manufactured, it was issued, and it remains one of the rarest and most fascinating artifacts of World War II. The glove gun reminds us that warfare drives innovation in unexpected directions. Sometimes that innovation is brilliant, sometimes it's terrifying, and sometimes, just sometimes, it's both. This was the glove gun, the weapon you wore, the punch that killed, the handshake that was an execution.